protected by God. Let's rejoice with all of our instruments, including everyone's voices. Hope you'll join with me. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Try that. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
Shabbat Shalom. It is so nice to see all of you. It really is one of my very, very favorite times of the week when we all get to join in services together, when we get to see each other over Zoom, when we get to celebrate Shabbat in this way together. So Shabbat Shalom to all of you. It really is such an honor and a blessing to be here with you tonight. I did see in the chat that there is a note about the program after services tonight, and then that is one of the things I was going to mention. So I hope all of you can stay on after services tonight. The Brit Olam committee has organized a really special program. It is going to be talking about eviction and homelessness. There's going to be an excellent speaker. So I hope you were able to stay on tonight and enjoy this really fabulous program. So as we begin services tonight, I invite all of you just to take a deep breath. Deep breath in, a deep breath out. A deep breath in, a deep breath out. And one more. Deep breath in, a deep breath out. I don't know about you, but I definitely feel like this is a week when we definitely want to take a deep breath, take a moment to appreciate the calm and the peace and the joy that Shabbat can bring. So I wanted to start services tonight with a reading from Mishkan Tefillah. Where has this week vanished? Is it lost forever? Will I ever recover anything from it? The joy of life, the unexpected victory, the realized hope, the accomplished task. Will I ever be able to banish the memory of pain, the sting of defeat, the heaviness of boredom? On this day, let me keep for a while what must drift away. On this day, let me be free of the burdens that must return. On this day, Shabbat, abide. Help me to withdraw for a while from the flight of time, to attain the retreat of hours and days from the grasp of frantic life. Let me learn to pause, if only for this day. Let me find peace on this day. Let me into the quiet world this day. On this day, Shabbat, abide. So as we welcome Shabbat tonight, it gives me great pleasure to turn it over to the Berg-Aaronic family. We love seeing the three of you celebrating Shabbat together, and it gives me great pleasure to invite you now to light the Shabbat candles.
Hi, Shabbat Shalom.
Hello, everybody.
I'm Kara.
I'm Mike.
And who are you?
I'm Ruth.
And it's so nice to see you all and be together with you, even from afar. Ready?
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Ready to do.
All right. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho behava uvratzon hinhilanu, zikaron lema'aseh bereshit, ki hu yom tehila L'mikrae kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim, ki vanu v'acharta, ve'otanu kiddashta, mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha, be'ahava uvratzon, hinhaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. L'chaim.
L'chaim, l'chaim, Kara, Mike, and Ruth. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much. I want to take a moment and invite each and every one of you, if you or your family members would like to lead us in candles or kiddush on a Friday night, please do reach out and let us know. It helps us build our community. It helps us really get to know one another, and we would love nothing more. So in a little while, I will put my email address in the chat, or maybe I can invite our clergy assistant, Amber Harder, to do so. And please do reach out and let us know. We'd love to have you. We turn now to gratitude. For Shabbat holiness, which inspires sacred living. For Shabbat memories glowing even in darkness. For Shabbat peace, born of friendship and love. We offer thanks and blessing. Kabbalat Shabbat is nothing more than gratitude, psalms of pleasure and excitement, instruments and singing, psalms where we pause and welcome in this incredible holiday that we get every single week that brings us together. So please do join me. Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, ותגל הארץ, ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ותגל הארץ, ירם הים, ירם הים, ירם הים, ומלואו, 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 ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ותגל הארץ, ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ותגל הארץ. עוז הרוח לצדיק, וישרה לב שמחה, עוז הרוח לצדיק, וישרה לב שמחה, לב שמחה, וישרה לב שמחה, עוז הרוח לצדיק, וישרה לב שמחה, וישרה לב שמחה. You're gonna join me in a minute, and we're gonna clap and romamu. Yalala ki, kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romamu. Ki, kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romamu. Romamu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehakodsho. Romamu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehakodsho.
Somebody just wrote in the chat, Cantor Mayor, that the energy seemed very high on this Shabbat, and it's wonderful. I actually think that that's the energy of our entire community coming together. So it's wonderful to welcome Shabbat by welcoming one another. Shabbat nekabela, lehadodi likrakala, lene Shabbat nekabela, shamor bezachor, betibur echad yishmiyanu, el hameuchad Adonai echad, u'shemo echad l'shem u'tiferet, ve'elitila, lehadodi likrakala, Shabbat nekabela, lehadodi likrakala, lene Shabbat nekabela, likrat Shabbat, lechu b'necha ki mekor, haberach Adonai, u'shemo echad, shom ma'aseh, b'chshava ha'tefila, there we go, lehadodi likrakala, Shabbat nekabela, lehadodi likrakala, lene Shabbat nekabela. The imagery tells it at this moment, Shabbat enters through the nostrils, in fact. We breathe deeply in that Shabbat spirit. Oi v'shalom, ateret ba'ala, Gam besimcha ubetzola toch emunei am segula. Boi chala, lehadodi likrakala, lene Shabbat nekabela, lehadodi likrakala, lene Shabbat nekabela. our service in many ways, and our tradition center around the Shema. Hear, O people of Israel, the Shema says. Listen. Through the screen, across the miles, feel this presence of dozens of others, thousands across the globe, acknowledging this coming day, trailing the sun as Shabbat appears. Hear the past speaking to you in music and line. Put your ear to the ground and hear the rumble of the future as it comes. Only by listening do we feel those threads of community tying us together, past and future, east and west, from parents to their children and back again. The Shema is our reminder to listen and to hear. That elusive unity, it's our goal, made harder over Zoom, but easier too. Let us be here together. Let us join our voices together and try to hear the chorus.
Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha v'derech uv'shochpecha uv'kumecha ukshartam le'ot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha uktavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kedoshim le'noechem Ani Adonai Elohechem Asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim lihot lachem le'Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem emet. We are a people in whom the past endures, in whom the present is inconceivable without moments gone by. The Exodus lasted but a moment enduring forever. What happened once upon a time to us happens all the time. It is upon us to pause and notice. As we turn to Michamocha and make our way through Hashkivenu and Vishamru, we note where we are in the Torah. We are right on the brink of redemption, on the brink of freedom. And next week, we'll have the opportunity to hear Shirat Hayam being chanted by an incredibly talented, hardworking young person in our community. But here we are standing on the cusp of something really exciting. I believe that history repeats itself. I think we have seen this throughout time. We as a people stand on the cusp of something exciting. Pray for love and friendship to carry us through the night and through these days of separation. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms.
In this moment of prayer, we turn from the words of tradition, we turn inwards towards the thoughts and the prayers that have accompanied us through this week. The ancient mystics had a practice of moving through every day in their mind of the week that had passed, trying to place themselves there and offering a blessing for it, which allowed them, they believe, to open their hearts to more private prayer, to be more fully present in the moment of Kabbalat Shabbat. I want to share a thought with you as an introduction, a doorway into that moment of silent prayer. An online author that I follow recently posted, she has been trying to sit for 8 minutes each day in total silence. She was challenged to try this in a theology class as a way to connect with the voice within and with God. She wrote about her curiosity to feel that quietude entering her busy mind, which never seemed to stop. And then she compared the experience to meditation or even yoga for her. The goal is not to rest, but rather to avoid the temptation to succumb to that haze, to quiet one's thoughts, and in her words, to create space in the mind and in the heart for God, to allow God to speak to us in the silence. I welcome you now to open that door, create that space for yourself. A thought has blown the marketplace away. There is a song on the wind and joy in the trees. Shabbat arrives in the world, scattering its song in the silence of the night, and eternity utters a day. Eternity utters a day. Ya la la, ya la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la, ya la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la, ya la 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 la. Hope you'll join with me. A thought has blown the marketplace away. There is a song on the wind and joy in the trees. Shabbat arrives in the world, scattering its song in the silence of the night, and eternity utters a day. Eternity utters a day. Ya la la, ya la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la, ya la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la, ya la 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 la. Oh, say shalom b'imromah, uyaseh shalom aleinu. Oh, say shalom b'imromah, uyaseh shalom aleinu.
So at this point in our service, when we turn our thoughts to those in our community and in our lives in need of healing, whether the healing is physical, emotional, or spiritual, I invite you to share the names of your loved one in the chat at this time. As a community, we pray for James Graham, Ann Vaprin, Shelley Iltis, Brian Davis, Joanne and Aaron Rubin, Karen Freed, Barbie Stenacker, Nancy Bonham, and we add to their names Havi Lev Goldstein and Annabeth Spalding, Jill Ross, Donald Parker, Donna Isroff, Whitney Meeks, Jan Main, Michael Rexroth, Harvey Katz, Eric and family and Megan McLaughlin, Janet Strausberg, Ben Weiss, Andy Kozer, Harris Jones, Zachary Berman, Angela Parson, Ruth Roth and Marilyn Witt, Dudley Kaysen, Sheila Satoris, Paula Barrett, Cindy Merrill, Joanna Sloan and Martin Lee Goslin, and Ann Lakin. We pray Misha Berach together.
Amen. On Wednesday, as Americans, we were given a charge, not by a rabbi or a priest, not by a religious leader of any kind, but by a 22-year-old woman named Amanda Gorman, who is our nation's first ever Youth Poet Laureate. She concluded her remarks at the end of President Biden's inauguration with these words: "When the day comes, when we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid, the new dawn blooms as we free it. For there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it." She is urging us to be the light. She wants us not only to be the light, but to spread the light all around us. Ms. Gorman's charge is a familiar one to us as Jews. Our religion is filled with metaphors and symbols, and one of the things that we are tasked to be is to be a light unto the nations, an or legoim. And I know this is a really big task, to be a light unto the nations, but that is what is being asked of us. We are reminded of this ask every time we enter into a chapel or a sanctuary. We are reminded of this aspirational role that we are being tasked to do as Jews. So I want to explain this to you a little bit. To do so, I ask you to picture a Ner Tamid, or an eternal light, in your minds. You can picture the one at IHC or any other place. In normal times, I would point and draw your attention to the Ner Tamid right near us. But since we cannot do that at this time, I invite you after the service to go ahead and take a look at a Ner Tamid. A Ner Tamid, the eternal light, is placed in front of the ark. And it is one of these things that we can look at hundreds of times without really thinking about. Tonight, I want to spend a little bit of time focusing on the Ner Tamid and what it is really asking of us. The Ner Tamid had a powerful meaning for the Israelites as they wandered in the deserts, and I argue that it still has an important message for us today. The idea of the Ner Tamid originates in the Parashat in Exodus, Truma and Tetzaveh. The Ner Tamid is a compound word in Hebrew which pushes two words together. It starts with the word ner, or lamp, and the word tamid, which translates as always. So put together, these words mean eternal lights. The Israelites received instructions from God that they were to build a portable sanctuary while they wandered in the desert. God instructs Moses to ask the Israelites to bring gifts so they can make a tabernacle or a mishkan for God to dwell among them as they wandered in the desert. We also learned that this mishkan required a light, a ner tamid. The text states that you shall further instruct the Israelites to bring you clear oil of beaten olives for lights, for kindling lamps regularly or always. For the Israelites, this undimming, everlasting, eternal light, this ner tamid, is at the very heart of the tabernacle. It was a source of guidance, of comfort, and of inspiration. As the Israelites were literally walking from their past as an enslaved people to their future as a free nation, they kept God's covenant at the very center of their community. And at the center of the center was this ner tamid. So the tradition of having a ner tamid began in Exodus, and it continues in sanctuaries all around the world today. But in addition to reminding the Israelites of God's presence, the ner tamid is reminding the Israelites of the promises that they and we have made to God. By choosing to establish a covenant with the Israelite people, God asked them and us to be a light unto the nations, to be an or l'goyim. The light of the ner tamid reminds us that we are supposed to act as an or l'goyim, a holy people. We are asked to be a light unto the nations. We and our leaders are being asked to live to be holy people. The ner tamid is asking us to use our words and our deeds and our actions to be this holy people, to be an example of the best for the rest of humanity. We too are on a journey. We might not be marching from slavery to freedom as our ancestors did, but we are supposed to live holy lives. We are supposed to be our best selves and care for those around us. We are tasked with being this or l'goyim, this holy nation. The ner tamid is challenging us to live our lives with holiness each and every day. Rabbi Marcy Bellows writes, perhaps as people who are meant to be an or l'goyim, we can dedicate ourselves to personifying the symbol of God's light in the world. Through mitzvot and the act of loving kindness, we can bring light into darkness. With love and care and compassion, we can help those around us. The light of the ner tamid is a reminder that we need to bring mitzvot into the world, that we can and should be a light for others. And this is the way that we are holy. Our treatment from others is how we spread the light of the ner tamid all around us. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs of blessed memory on this topic writes, what is remarkable about the Bible is the idea that love, and not just fairness, is the driving principle of a moral life. Love, loving kindness is how we achieve holiness, and that is how we become a light unto the nations, an or l'goyim. The idea of spreading light is core to who we are as Jews, and overcoming difficulties is central to our narrative as a nation. 2 weeks ago, we saw the opposite of spreading lights when our country experienced a very dark day in our history. On January 6th, the very institution that our country holds most dear, at the center of our identity, was under attack. Violence and hatred entered into the very heart of our democratic institutions. And as Rabbi Kirchhofer said, the memory of this day will stay with us for a long time. But this week, on Wednesday, our country was filled with light again when we saw a peaceful transition of power. Overcoming the shadows and fears, elected officials of both parties sat together on a dais and celebrated the inauguration of a new president. In this moment, regardless of party affiliation, the best of America and our institutions came shining through. We allowed our light as Americans to shine brightly and to guide us once again. In speaking about the light within the American spirit, Amanda Gorman said, "So let us leave behind a country better than the one that we were left with. We will rise from the golden hills of the West. We will rise from the windswept Northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked South. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover every known nook and cranny of our nation and every corner of our country, of our diverse people, beautiful, and emerge battered and beautiful. When the day comes, we will step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid, and the new dawn blooms as we will free it, for there is always light, if we are brave enough to see it, if only we are brave enough to be it." We as Americans, and especially Jews, are tasked with embodying this light of holiness. We do this in so many ways, and one way we do this is when we listen to each other, when we listen and we really hear one another. That is one way when we embody this light. Every time we walk into a Jewish worship place with an ark, we are reminded of our task to be this Or Lagoim, a light unto the nation. The Ner Tamid is asking us to be the spreader of light in our communities, in our homes, in our cities, in our world. When we spread hope and light and respect and compassion, then we are embodying these lights of holiness. This task was not just for the Israelites in the Sinai desert, but it is set before each and every one of us. We can all bring these lights of kindness and justice and love to each other and how we treat one another. We can be as aspirational as our texts and our everyday actions, and we can allow the brightness of the Ner Tamid to burn brightly at the center of our lives. This is what the Ner Tamid is asking of us. It is up to us to answer this call. May God give us the wisdom, the compassion, the patience, and the empathy to meet this challenge. May we have the ability to truly embody this holy light of the Ner Tamid, to shine brightly through each and every one of us and be that Or Lagoim every single day. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you so much for those wonderful words and a reminder of the light that is in each one of us, that unites us, that unites our country. It's really a wonderful reminder of the lessons learned this week. It's also a pleasure to welcome Andrea Burnett, a member of our board of directors, to offer words of greetings to all of you. Shabbat Shalom, Andrea.
Shabbat Shalom to everybody. It's so nice to see everyone this evening. Thank you to our clergy and staff for such a lovely service. Please check our website and Facebook page. We have a number of wonderful programs coming up. I'm especially looking forward this week and especially this evening after this service to plan on staying on and hearing the Brit Olam social justice team's program on evicted and homelessness in Indianapolis. I think we have a lot to learn. Tomorrow, there is a new program at IHC, and hopefully I'm pronouncing this right, Menschkin's Afternoon Shabbat, geared for 5 and under. at 4 o'clock. And I'm planning on attending and bringing my 2-year-old and 4-year-old grandchildren via Zoom. So also, Sisterhood on Tuesday is Tuesday, January 26th, will be the Tu Shabbat Seder for women. And registration has been extended until Sunday. So please visit the IHC website to register if you're interested in going. There's still space. So thank you, and turn it back to you.
Thank you so much, Andrea. It's a wonderful reminder of tonight. Hopefully everyone will stay on. I don't think it's going to be a particularly long presentation, but very powerful. I know that it'll be something that you will want to hear. As always, we turn our thoughts at the end of our Shabbat experience to those we have lost in recent days, those who are suffering now from their own losses, and those who we lost in years past who we remember at this time. I would invite you to use the chat once again. If there is someone in particular that you are here remembering that may not be on our list, and we'll read those aloud as well. On this Shabbat, we remember specifically Anne Soblosky, Larry Soblosky's mother, who passed away this past week. We add to her name those who were lost to our congregational family during the past 30 days, whose families are in the period of Shloshim. We remember Jack Steneker, Bill Romer, Billy Romer, Candace Dorn Dorston, Helen Bruning Wilson, and Gail M. Johnson. We also recall those whose yard sites occurred this week, the anniversary of their passing. We remember Shirley Backer, Stephen Bailey, Anna Binzer, Gail Borad, Frida Burston, Nancy Chalfie, Rose Cohen, Catherine Cohen, Norman Cohen, Bernard Cohen, Harold Cohen, Virginia Dorman, Charles Ephraimson Jr., Victor Eichler, Sandra Feldman, Jesse Finkel, Abe Friedman, Lana Funkhauser, Bradley Goebel, Jerry Gould, Sid Greenberg, Maggie Harry, Ida Herman, David Hurwitz, Bessie Kaufman, Samuel Crute, Paul Kolbach, Max Lapidus, Ruth Lazarus, Jack Leffel, Harold Leopold, Florence Leschnover, Alex Levenstein, Frida Leibowitz, Helen Logan, Gertrude Lowenstein, Pearl Lucas, Oscar Margolis, Francine Memberg, Bertha Newmark, Catherine Parker, Frida Paul, Ava Peel, Kelly Pearson, Anna Reich, Doris Richmond, Barbara Bobby Rosenbaum, Anna Roth, Sadie Rothbaum, Marvin Rubin, Gilbert Sally, Robert Searing, Joyce Shaw, Margie Silver, Faye Skolnick, Lillian Steinberg, David Stiefler, Tully Stonehill, Dion Tysius, Leah Troggett, Gabe Wagman, Iris Waxman, Nate Winsky, Marcia Wolf, Eugene Zuckerman, Milton Zwern. We also remember those who were included in our chat. Chuck Michelum, Anna Callis, Rose Herman, Jeannie Schaefer, Victor N. Eichler, Gary Friedman, Scott Hargis, Rich Corvasi, Terry Shepard. Zichronam Livracha, may all of their memories always be for blessing. We join together now in the words of Mourner's Kaddish. Yikadal Yikadash Shemei Rabbah, Bi'alma Divrach Yeruteh V'yamlich Malchuteh, V'chayechon V'yomechon, V'chayei Dechol Beit Yisrael, V'agala V'zman Kariv V'yimru Amen. Yehi Shemei Rabbah Mevarach Le'olam Olamei Amaya, Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitromam V'yitnaseh, V'yithadar V'yit'aleh V'yithalal Shmei Dekud Shabrichu, La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, da'amiran bi'alma v'yimru amen. Yehi shlomo rabba min shemaya, V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. It's become our custom to add to this prayer for peace for our people, a prayer for peace for all who dwell on earth, with the words V'al kol yoshvei tevel. I invite us all to say once again, Amen. Amen. I'm going to look for my cue here. Cantor Aviva had a special idea for the end of our service today. Shabbat Shalom, Cantor Aviva.
Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Before we close, let's take a moment and bless our children. And if you have a challah with you, please feel free. I wish I could say I baked this one, but in fact I did not. Rabbi Brett's look like this when he makes them. Anyway, we join together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Before we turn it over to our social justice committee and program, I thought we would offer one final prayer. Our country has come so far, and yet the world, as we are about to find out, and our country has a long way to go. So I hope you will join me. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. And with that, I turn it over to Andy Aronson and the Brit Olam Committee.
Hi, everybody. I'm not quite sure what the protocol is. I'll look to our clergy. Do we want to take a moment in between or jump right in to the program?
We had
Or
talked about that. Andy, it's so nice to see you. Shabbat Shalom. We had talked about, if we go right into the program, then people will feel uncomfortable leaving. And so that way we'll capture them for the whole time. Just kidding. We actually figured the opposite. If people needed a bio break or wanted to just say Shabbat Shalom and head off, they would do that. So we are pleased to start right away, and it's really nice to see you. Thanks so much for bringing this program to us.
okay. Well, I'm going to take just a little moment to explain what Brit Olam is and what we're doing here tonight. So Brit Olam translates to covenant with our world. IHC, along with close to 250 other congregations, has signed this covenant, committing to advocating for lasting change on social justice issues of shared significance. The Brit Olam reminds us of the words from Pirkei Avot: study alone is not enough. Our tradition demands action. In 2019, we started with Brit Olam, and we welcomed input from the whole congregation, and we chose reducing evictions as our initial goal. And then in 2020, in the wake of the pandemic and with the general election looming, we added increasing voter safety and participation as our second goal. The Indiana legislative session has begun. Now is the time to act. Tonight's program is about homelessness and evictions. We've organized this program to help everyone understand what is at stake and what we can do about it. We will also have a program this coming Monday night in which we'll discuss a New Yorker article, Forced Out, written by Matthew Desmond, who's the winner of the Pulitzer Prize for his book, Evicted. And there are some people who are going to be posting information in the chat about how to get to that meeting and how to get to that article. So I will invite them to do that as they wish, now and later, I think. Our speaker tonight is Mike Chapuran. Please forgive me if I haven't pronounced that exactly correctly. Mike is the executive director of Family Promise of Greater Indianapolis since 2016. And IHC has been a hosting congregation for Family Promise for many years, providing families with a place to live and meals to eat, and helping to give them a path back to gaining long-term housing. And we're looking forward to continuing that again this fall. I myself have volunteered as an overnight host. I know many of us have volunteered. It takes a lot of people working together, but it's always been very fulfilling. Prior to coming to Family Promise, Mike worked for the United Way of Central Indiana, Dominican Volunteers USA in Chicago, and Detroit Shoreway Community Development Organization in Cleveland. He was a Peace Corps volunteer in Panama and an AmeriCorps Vista volunteer in the Bronx. He has a Bachelor of Arts in Economics and Religious Studies and a Master of Public Affairs with a concentration in nonprofit management and fund development. I hope that you all join me in showing some warmth to Mike and welcoming him to our congregation to speak. And Mike, I don't know yet whether you have been given the ability to share your slides yet.
I have.
You have, okay.
Yep.
And I don't know if there's anything we need to do to make it so that everybody sees you when you speak.
As I speak, I'll show up on their top row probably. So
Okay.
it's good to go.
Fantastic.
All right. Thumbs up if you can hear me okay. All right. I can't see you okay because I took off my glasses because we got a board game for the holidays where it's called Throw Burrito. And you throw fake burritos at people, and my wife hit me in the face and broke my glasses are now crooked. So I'm just gonna pretend you're smiling and laughing at jokes if I make them. I'm at my home about 5 doors that way is the JCC on Hoover Road. So I live right up there. And I've probably sold a handful of you bagels because my daughter, my family happens to be Catholic, but my daughter went to IHC for childcare. So on Fridays, she would come home and say, Shabbat Shalom. Those were some of the early words in her vocab. So Shabbat Shalom, everybody. And I'm honored to be here. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, rabbis. And Brit Olam, I think, for the invitation. Sorry if I mispronounced that. So I'm going to jump right in. I was told I could fill up to 30 minutes. And then if there's questions along the way, raise your hand or at the end. I might not need to take that long, but I can go on tangents. So just like go to the bathroom a lot and turn off your video and I'll know I'm talking too much. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now because I got some slides with some neat photos that I'd love it if you all saw. All right. I'm going to go to slideshow and play from the beginning. Okay. So I've been with Family Promise almost 5 years now, and many of you, as Andy said, know it as the Indianapolis Interfaith Hospitality Network. You've been hosting families at IHC for 25 years, so congratulations on, is that silver? Like a silver anniversary, 25 years. You're one of our very first congregations to ever join, so thank you for that. I'm going to be talking about COVID, eviction, homelessness, and housing, and they are all connected, and we'll talk about how that is. To start off with, and this is a story that some of you may have heard before. There we go. So this is the agenda in the order. I'm gonna talk about the problem of homelessness and eviction, and then shelter as a solution in hopes that it inspires you to volunteer. And then number 3, not 1, is policy as a solution in hope that it inspires you to advocate. You don't have to leave this as a master of or an expert of the information, but hopefully you leave this inspired to perhaps attend the meeting on Monday night or to do more and respond to emails that Andy or Rabbi send out through the IHC newsletter. All right, so let me paint a picture for you. Around late May 2016, I went to Family Promise for my first day on the job, and I wanted to work the phones. and find out who's calling and stuff. Plus, we're a small staff. I would need to work the phones anyway. And the phone rang right about 8:30, and I picked it up and I said, "Family Promise, this is Mike. How can I help you?" "Hi, do you have space for me and my children?" "Oh, no, we're a shelter. We are a homeless shelter for families with kids, but right now we're completely full. You could call 211. That's like 911 for social services. You could call 211 for other options." "Okay, thanks." It rang immediately. "Hi, Mike, Family Promise. How can I? Do you have space for my family?" "No, I'm sorry, we're full." Same script. Rang again and again and again. And after 5 calls, I was wondering, is this every day? And the staff said, yeah. And then maybe 15 minutes passed and the phone rang again. All the conversations had been just like what I quoted. And then this one was a young sounding female voice, I assume, I don't know, and said, "Hi, do you have space?" "No, I'm sorry. We're a homeless shelter for families with kids, but today we're full. You could try I've called 211. I've called Dayspring. I've called Holy Family. I've been calling you for 2 weeks. I'm sleeping in the attic of my brother's house with my baby. Do you know how hot it gets in an attic?" And that day in May, honestly, as an aside, had been about 85 degrees. It was a hot day. So I couldn't imagine if heat rises to the attic. I said, yeah, no, I was a little speechless. I said, "Well, you could try us tomorrow at 9 at click." We might have had a spot open the next day. I'm not sure. I won't forget that call. And I quickly realized this is a tally sheet from that summer that we kept at our center desk, the first summer that I worked for Family Promise. We have the same tally sheet for every quarter since, and the tally marks are always the same. It's a tally mark for every family that we turn away. Dayspring, Holy Family, they might not keep tally sheets, but those other shelters report the same numbers. They are also always full. These are the family shelters. In winter, there is a plan where Wheeler Mission, a big shelter, will let people sleep on the floor. But almost every day of the year, families are turned away. And it peaks in July, not in the cold winter months, but in July it peaks when tax refunds have been spent, elementary schools are out, and families are responsible for childcare. It peaks in July. But why? Why do we have so many families that we're turning away? Alex Slabosky and me like to try to get to the bottom of these. I know many of you know Alex. And so we started researching as best we could. And that's the same time that a professor from Princeton, Matt Desmond, got a MacArthur Genius Grant and created for writing the book Evicted and his research from Princeton. He's a sociologist. And in that book, Evicted, it inspired him to start a website called Eviction Lab. And some of you might have been there. It has now been in the IBJ and Indy Star and a whole bunch of others. And at the website Eviction Lab, what he did is for the first time ever, he comprehensively took all the eviction data available in the trustee level, the township level, I should say, the county level and state level. And he compiled all that eviction data to come up with a list of who are the top evicting cities and by size in the nation. Now, this is not the eviction rates. This is total evictions. Indianapolis is not a big city with what I think like 900,000 people. We're not big compared to Chicago. Yet we have almost twice as many evictions as Chicago. Indy is the second largest evicting city in the entire nation, the United States of America. Indianapolis, our city. In fact, how I like to put it and how we put it on some signs is if you add up Chicago, Los Angeles, and Topeka combined, we still have more evictions. And you can go to Eviction Lab. It's a real easy to use site and you can see that. But Indy is not the only problem. When we found that in the New York Times and Alex had showed it to me and we started digging into why, we were like, okay, so is it an Indianapolis issue? And maybe, certainly there's issues with the public housing and number of Section 8 vouchers and other policies available, but it's not just Indy. Now this data is presented by Eviction Rate. If you look at Eviction Rates, we are the 14th. Indy is the 14th highest rate of evictions. Fort Wayne's on the top 50, South Bend, a lot of other mid-sized cities are in the top 100, and even small and rural areas are affected. When you have this many cities, a disproportional amount on your top 50 and your top 100 lists for evictions, it says it might be a state issue, not just a city issue. So although Indy might have some problems and opportunities for solutions, the state does as well. This is starting to catch hold. You've probably hopefully seen some press about it, but even the Indiana Chief Justice, Loretta Rush, about a year ago this week, she made this statement in her judiciary address, the state of the judiciary, a year ago. She said, I recently spent a morning in small claims court. That's where evictions are filed, 99% of them anyway. This morning's docket, and this was just the morning docket, had 275 eviction cases. None of the defendant tenants had representation, not one. They all faced the judge and opposing lawyer alone. Two shocking things in that. The number is just from one township. Now, granted, it was since Center Township, I can tell you that. But add up all the other townships in our state, Wayne Township, Lawrence Township, Pike Township, go up to Lake County and Elkhart and everywhere else, and there's other townships. 275 just in Center Township for the morning docket, and none had attorneys. So those are obviously some dramatic things that say we need to do something about it. However, we had this thing called COVID-19 that you all know about very much because it's changed all of our lives very deeply and taken many lives too. And the National Low-Income Housing Coalition in DC has predicted that Indiana alone could have a tsunami of 300,000 evictions in 2021 when the moratoria, different moratoria. Right now, the only moratorium we have is the CDC's one that President Biden just extended till at least March 31st, or recommended the CDC extend it. That's not official yet. But it's set to expire January 31st now, but we could have 300,000 evictions. That's how many people are behind in rent and at risk of it. Now it was already high. Imagine, and our system, homeless system was already overwhelmed. Imagine after that. So that's all the scary news, but there's certainly a lot of it. Number two, shelter as a solution. And since you all, many of you have volunteered with the IHN program, I'm not going to try to spend the minutes telling you how that works with the beds and the trailers and things like that. There's plenty of your fellow congregants at IHC that can tell you how that works. But I will talk a little bit about how we responded to COVID and fly through some of these slides. These are all of the shelters, the main ones in Indianapolis. Dayspring is a family shelter. It was donated building from the Episcopal Church next door. Holy Family Shelter is a Catholic shelter on the west side in the neighborhood of Hawville. Most everybody's heard of Wheeler Mission because it's the largest one. They got Wheeler Mission for men, Wheeler Mission for women. Salvation Army near downtown with Bernie sitting on the front. Yeah, there, Rabbi saw it. Okay, good. And then Good News Ministries also. Near downtown on East, is it 10th or Washington? I haven't been there in over a year, but so I forget. But these are the main shelters. Why I put them side by side with all their names showing is because you probably notice a theme. There's a Christian element to all of their names, whether it's Salvation, Dayspring from the Christian Gospel of Luke, or Holy Family, Jesus, Mary, Joseph. Wheeler says Jesus saves right on the sign. And then Good News Ministries, meaning the gospel, the Christian gospel, which they require chapel and other services. It's very much faith-based shelters. And I'm not against faith-based shelters. I work for an interfaith hospitality network, but we don't have a public shelter in Indianapolis. We don't, and there's no movement to get one. And without a public shelter, that's one reason why we are always short shelters. Our city has never invested in it. We're one of those cities that says the faith-based community can do it. And they've responded, don't get me wrong, but not near enough to meet the actual need. You should see, they don't take too many photos, but I think if they did, Wheeler's programming space in the winter in a non-pandemic year has people sleeping on mats in the floors that they had to start using a gymnasium at a local church to have guys sleep on the floor. That's how bad it is. So those are some of the shelters, but we were founded 25 years ago with this IHN program to be an interfaith program. And so we're grateful to have so many temples participating from the Jewish religion. We have a Hindu support group in Carmel that supports a lot of the hosting congregations. And we thank all of you volunteers for getting involved, making meals, driving vans, sleeping overnight, like Andy said. And we're grateful for that service because it's huge and it's necessary. And because we're interfaith, we can be one of the most inclusive shelters and least discriminating in the entire city. In fact, not one of, we are the least discriminating and most inclusive shelters in the entire city. And we're proud of that. But that's not the only thing that we can be proud of. For all of you volunteers who have ever spent the night or made a meal or done the laundry on the weekend, or this is something, Joanne, that you can be proud of, because I know Joanne Morris was at the Shabbat service. She's a nurse practitioner who's come to our day center of a shelter to give immunizations and wellness checks for over 2 decades. But this is something to be proud of. Our housing rate is 22% higher than the average of all the other shelters, and it is the highest of all shelters. Our length of stay is too long. We got to get that down a little bit. But our return to homelessness rate is 18% lower than the average of all the other shelters, and it's the lowest by far. We're not even close. And I think a lot of that is because volunteers keep staff accountable to compassion. Empathy fatigue is a lot harder when you have the volunteer from IHC calling you the next morning saying, you forgot to give little Jimmy a coat yesterday. He got on the van without a coat. We gave him my daughter's hoodie, but that's not enough. Please get the coat today. And it's like, yeah, you're right. Yes, he is the 1,000th kid we've seen without a coat, and we didn't get on it in the first 24 hours, but thank you, volunteer, because you're exactly right. Jimmy needs that coat. So thank you for all you're doing. When I was told to talk a little bit about what we did when COVID hit, so 3 slides real fast. Our congregation model was not safe for families, for kids, for volunteers. Congregations were shutting down too. So we suspended everything on March 13th. All families went to weekly stay hotels. We did case management and weekly drop-offs. We continued that, and we did fundraisers to pay for it. That's expensive. That's not sustainable. So we did an event in April, raised $121,000 thanks to huge generosity. In fact, Dan Cook, I know he lives in Florida, but he's a member of your congregation historically and maybe currently today. He did a matching grant that got us partway there. That allowed us to rent 10 apartments. And now we use apartments, furnished apartments, as shelters. We call it the Apartment Shelter Project. We got some CARES Act money and rented another 10. So right now, we usually, with IHN, served 8 families at a time. Now we got 20 that we're serving. And that's thanks to the generosity of all these volunteers who said, we know we can't serve right now in the same way, but we will help in the ways we can. And so this is an example of the Apartment Shelter Project. You'll see Judy Sosin was one of the ones that helped set up some units with housewares donated by IHC and some Northminster Presbyterian volunteers. And this is what an apartment looks like. Imagine that being the shelter that you experience when you move in. Imagine the dignity. And here's an example. We had a baby born in one of our apartment shelters, not in it. They were born at the hospital, but after 2 days, they came back to that unit and mom had chosen to breastfeed. And imagine trying to breastfeed in a shelter, a congregate shelter, where all the rooms are near each other and your baby wakes up at 2 a.m. You're embarrassed. You're already frantic as a young parent. But imagine having your own apartment and getting to breastfeed and 2 a.m. in front of a TV, not with cable, but you could still get channel 13. Cut the cord, everybody. Unless any of you work for the cable company, then it's still great. Sorry if I offended anybody. I do that a lot. Okay. So when will IHN restart? We're tentatively set to reopen the first rotation, meaning 4 families at a congregation every night in July. IHC is next on the schedule to host the week of Halloween. And you can email info@FPGI or any of your coordinators like Mitch, Judy, Lori, or Sarah to get connected to how you could sign up to volunteer. Just read the IHC newsletter that goes out by email. It'll be well publicized in there. If we can open by October and by July. Those are big questions still, but that's the tentative plan. All right. Now, policy as a solution. There was a mom that came to our shelter, and when we learned her story, this is what it was. Before the pandemic started, in the month of December of one year, a couple years back, she was living at public housing. Kind of derogatory referred to as the projects. You know, in big cities, it's high rises. Here it's scattered site housing, but it's still public housing. In public housing, you pay $50 a month in rent. When you suddenly have income because you got a job, you have to pay 1/3 of your income in rent. This mom in December got a job working at Lids. You all might have worn a hat from Lids to a Colts game someday. She is happy that she got a job. It's not quite full time. She's expecting to make $300 a week or $1,200 a month. She turns in her paperwork that same day to the office to let them know she now has income. Her January rent bill comes. This is a mom of 3 kids. She really needs this apartment. She knows she has to pay probably $400 a month now. On January 1st, she's thinking, I owe $400 a month because that's 1/3 of my income. The rent bill says $50. She's like, how great. Maybe over the holiday, they didn't process it yet. And I'll owe the $400 starting in February. So she paid the $50. She stayed with her job. Her 7, 6, and 4-year-old at the time, doing well. Keep going to school. Everything's peachy. February 1st, she gets her rent bill. $50. She had turned in her paperwork. She had her confirmation. She paid the $50 and maybe she should have said something. I'm not saying she should or shouldn't have. I probably would have, but she didn't. She thanked her lucky stars and said, I don't know. I'm not going to rock the boat. March bill comes. How much do you think it was? $1,100. 400 plus 400 plus 400 minus the 250 she had paid in January and February. $1,100. She had been paying off a past landlord that she still owed. She had gotten new shoes for the kids because their kids literally, shoes had holes in them. She had a cell phone bill. She had to get a car fixed. She had a lot of bills. She couldn't afford the $1,100. 2 weeks later, she was filed on. And when they said you're beyond due, you're past due, she was filed on. 3 weeks later, she was evicted. She didn't even go to court because she didn't think she had a case. She didn't know that she had a case. I will say she wound up bouncing around for 9 months with family and friends because nobody calls a shelter first. They always go family and friends first, same as you and I probably would. And then she got into Family Promise. She stayed at IHC and she's now housed and her kids are back in school and she's been housed for now 1.5 years. So that's a success story. But it also highlights that we need maybe a right to counsel, at the very least, more funding for counsel. The same way we have public defenders, what about in an eviction case? So that's something we're working for. What if she had had that attorney? She might have been able to negotiate to stay and been on a payment plan or something. What if she had had a 14-day notice to make it right? Would that have saved her? She would have got a couple other paychecks and could have put a big dent in that $1,100 bill. All right, rent depositing is something else we're pushing for that maybe didn't align with my story, but that means if your landlord's not making repairs, you can put your rent in escrow with a third party, like a housing court or the government, and then that compels your landlord to make repairs. That's something we really want to fight for, because right now, if you call the health department, they'll inspect very quickly. They are good at inspections, but no court will levy any consequence against a landlord for a minimum of 4 months passing. And if you ever want to know why, I can talk to you more, but that's a 10-minute process to get into, and I don't want to spend all your Friday evening on that. And then what if that mom she had trouble getting another place in those 9 months, not just for the money, but because she now had 2 evictions on her record and a debt of $1,100. What if she had sealed one of the past evictions that she eventually paid off? What if she had gotten that sealed? Then it wouldn't have showed up as a past eviction. When she pays it off, should it be sealed or not? We think that that would really help, because otherwise you have that scarlet letter E walking around and it's hard to get approved by a future landlord. We run into that all the time. And sometimes you're charged 3 security deposits, 3 months rent or other things, because the landlord is a business person and wants to mitigate their risk. All right. So that's what we're working for as policy solutions. This is what happened 1 year ago in this legislative session. The state legislature meets January to March-ish, sometimes April. So we had a bill that asked for all those things to be passed. The guy in the center of that table right there, that's Representative Jerry Torr. This is State Senator Victoria Sparks. Now she is in the House of Representatives in Washington. And this is the Judiciary Committee of the House of Representatives. If you have a bill and you want to get it passed into law at the state, it has to go to a committee first. And the committee has to say, yeah, we'll hear this on the floor. Representative Torr, I should say, Jerry told us when we stopped him in the State House, he said, sorry, your bill may be important, but it's a short session. We don't have time to hear it. Maybe next year in 2021, we could hear it if you resubmit the bill. So the bill never even got a hearing. He decides what bills get hearings or not. So you have to find the committee chair where your bill goes and convince them to give it a hearing. No tenants' rights bill has ever gotten a hearing in the last 3 years I've been following it, but maybe longer. So what did happen was the city then started to pass a bunch of stuff. The city on February 24th had a city county council meeting where they were going to say, we're going to fund more council. We're going to make landlords give a notice of tenants' rights to the tenant at lease signing. We're going to fine landlords that evict if you complain about the conditions to the health department. They can't retaliate. We're going to pass all these things at the city level. And so State Senator Sparks at the time, she had an amendment put on a bill that had nothing to do with landlord-tenant rights, nothing at all. She had an amendment put on that bill and brought it that morning, the same morning of the city meeting that night. And she said, Representative Torr, can you give this an amendment a hearing? And he said, oh, sure, we got time. No joke. He didn't have time for any tenant bills, but suddenly with 48 hours notice, he got the amendment through. And the amendment said, everything cities are trying to do, they're no longer allowed to do. Indiana is a home rule state, or not, I might have got that wrong. If you're attorneys, you can correct me later. But Indiana, the city's powers are given to them by the state. So if a city is trying to change landlord-tenant law locally, we can preemptively stop that. And so they did, and they passed it out of committee. It passed the House, it went, they reconciled everything with the Senate, and then it was up for a vote, and it passed both houses. So Indianapolis's laws went really well, and they passed that night. But then the state passed something that said none of those matter. You can't pass those. And then the governor, right when coronavirus had hit around March 13th, on March 25th, it's on the governor's desk, and he had to sign this amendment on this bill into law, and he chose not to. The governor went against his own party and both houses and said, with all the evictions we might be facing, with all the jobs and restaurants being closed right now and everything else in the stay-at-home order, with how bad our ICUs are getting, it's not the time to pass a bill that undoes what some cities have done. And that's great. So it was vetoed. So last year, nothing happened in the landlord-tenant law, not for tenants, not for landlords either. It just didn't happen. But from that, this is IHN volunteers at the city county council meeting that night. We got involved with it because we wanted to give it some help, give it some numbers. The Hoosier Housing Needs Coalition was born. This is a website. I'm not good at Family Promise because our mission is a shelter. I'm not good at sending out policy updates because we are serving more families than we ever have. This website and email list is much better at sending out websites, and they are the principal agency leading our Hoosier Housing Needs Coalition. But Family Promise helped form this last April, and we're one of the 7 founding members on the steering committee. So that's, if you see anything with that logo or that name on it, Family Promise is part of that, and I'm trying to vouch for them here and say, follow that. And their website will have updates on the bills that we're looking at and give you ideas of who to contact, give you messaging and things like that. I won't spend time describing these, but I can send out these slides, a link to them, and maybe Andy could forward them to anybody that attends Monday's thing, or another way of disseminating them. But these are the bills that are about landlord-tenant law. None have had a committee, not one has had a committee hearing yet, but they all could if the chair of that committee gives them a hearing. We like the green ones. The red one is simply another way to stop the cities from doing everything they did. So it's that thing the governor vetoed, they're just trying to pass it again. So that's a very, it can hurt. If the state won't pass any things to balance landlord-tenant law, then that will stop cities from doing it too. All right. You know what? When Matt Desmond came out with all the eviction data and some states realized how bad it was and how evictions are not just an effect of poverty, they can cause it. You can have trouble getting housing after that, and you can wind up calling Family Promise to stay there. A lot of states moved fast. Given our data in Indiana, we thought we would move fast, and we haven't, but other states did. New York City tiered up funding every year for a number of years and passed a right to an attorney in an eviction case. In Philadelphia, a year later, they passed the same thing. Well, a couple years later. So this was 2019, November 14th, 2019. Philadelphia said you have a right to counsel. Remember, Indy can pass a right to counsel. Funding, it's a better question. But that's if that state bill doesn't pass this year saying cities can't. In Virginia, they had some of the highest cities on the eviction rates list. And within 6 months of that, they passed a number of measures that landlords and tenants groups all agreed to. Like a notice to quit to give a tenant a little bit more time. And then in Washington State, they passed a notice to quit bill too, trying to help tenants get payment plans so that the parents and their kids aren't just evicted right away. So there is hope, and we can do that in Indianapolis too. And, you know, I told you about how that first day on the job, we had all those families we turned away, especially that mom and baby in the attic. And I still don't know where they are today. But later that week, a lady came to our front door of the day center, and she said, "Do you all need any donations of food?" And it was really, really busy. And we were like, the phone's ringing. All the families are coming back to get on the van to go to IHC or some other congregation. And the twins spilled the crayons, and we got to worry about chores, and it's a lot to do. And so we didn't give her the time of day. We just said, oh yeah, we could take food, sure. And we rushed to help her bring in 3 nice boxes of stuff that she was donating. And on her way out, without much conversation, she stopped in the doorway and she turned around, and I saw her eyes were really glassy. And she was a shorter woman wearing nurse's scrubs with a floral pattern and everything. And I said, ma'am, is there something the matter? 4 years ago, I just want you to know this program saved my life. So my coworker, Barb just woke up to who we were meeting and ran to her and gave her the biggest hug. Barb's like a hug incarnate. And she said, come tell us your story. And everything kind of stopped. And she had been homeless, but now she's living in a house that looks like that. Her kids are reading every night. Even after she turns the light out to go to bed, she'll go and find them. And one of her children is on the honor roll and was the valedictorian of her 8th grade class. I didn't know middle schools had valedictorians. When I was growing up, they didn't. But that's really cool and such an amazing achievement. And she's somebody to be really proud of, and for you to be really proud of for the work that you're doing. She's one that, now that I've gotten to know her, should never have been evicted if she had an attorney. And she's also one that, thanks to your volunteering at IHC, might have been on the path that she's on now, and might be the reason her kids will probably never experience homelessness. So I hope you volunteer or continue to. I hope you advocate or continue to. And I hope you attend the meeting on Monday night. And thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mike. I'm very, very grateful to so many things that you have done. For, of course, the work with Family Promise, and for helping to create the Hoosier Housing Needs Coalition, and for being here tonight. Obviously, there's a tremendous need out there, and IHC is tackling both what can we do now to help people in need, and also what can we do to keep so many people from being in need in the future. And that's really the goal of the Brit Olam program. I am going to put up a little bit of information which you couldn't possibly have not seen in the chat. But just I want to encourage everybody to join us. And when you have an opportunity to volunteer to help out the families in need now, please do. And also, over the next couple of months, we're going to be facilitating our congregation learning about what the advocating opportunities are. So please sign up for our email list, and you'll learn that way. And keep an eye on the weekly emails. And this Monday, we're going to be reading Forced Out. And the author that wrote that, and Mike talked about this, did an incredible job learning about this. And it wasn't just his later work in collecting all of the data together. He went in and learned firsthand what it was like to go through the process of being short on cash and having trouble with housing. And some of us have read his longer book, and it was extremely eye-opening. So I recommend you read that article, and please come and join us. I'm not sure there's too many more ways to say the same thing, that we'd love to have you come join us. But thank you very much for your attention and time tonight.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Mike. And thank you to the entire Brit Olam committee. Sarah and Alex, we worked closely together on this. I just want to remind everyone that being involved in even the smallest way makes a huge difference. In Pirkei Avot, in the first chapter, we are told that we are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are we free to desist from it. And the one thing we know is that as a community interested in Tikkun Olam and in the healing of the world and social justice, even just the smallest effort that we bring to the table, if we all bring a little bit, it can go a really long way. So I know that I am unbelievably proud to be part of a congregation that participates in the healing of the world in this way. So thank you to each and every one of you for this evening.
Happy to take a moment and let everyone unmute if you'd like to just say a quick Shabbat Shalom and farewell. And Mike, thank you so much once again.
Thank you.
Hope that everyone is very impressed with our Brit Olam committee as well. They're extraordinary.
Might I don't know if we explained the showing warmth, but this is easier
figured it
to.
out.
Yeah, you got it. Okay. All right.
Instead of
Either that or I
applause.
thought you all turned the heat off or something. I was like, we'll be seeing you at Family Promise soon enough.
There. Tom, come here.
Shabbat shalom, everyone. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat
shalom.
Wait a minute.
Uh,
Thank
so
you
it's
all
still
for the
us.
presentation.
Yes, totally appreciate it. Thank you, Mike. Thank you. 48 people left.
Thank you so much.
All right, everyone. Thanks so much. Take care.
Shabbat shalom.
Audible next time.
Shabbat shalom.
Thanks.